The Alternative für Deutschland Party, or the Alternative for Germany Party, has lost a major court case appeal. The domestic spy intelligence agency, known as the Office for the Protection of the Constitution, also known as the BfV, has been given the green light to begin sweeping surveillance of this counter-establishment party. This move appears to be multifaceted in its purpose. First, and perhaps most importantly for the ruling establishment of Germany, it is a stepping stone for the government in their attempt to ban the party outright. You see, Germany desperately wants to get rid of the AfD. Support for the Alternative for Germany party has doubled since the 2021 elections, in large part because of the sheer incompetence of the German government in their handling of both the Green Deal and, more importantly, the mass migration of immigrants into the country who do not hold Western values, which has led to a huge increase in harm to regular German citizens. The population can see this, and the German government doesn't like that the population can see it and discuss it. In fact, it was only a few days ago that we discussed here on this channel the conviction of Marie-Thérèse Kaiser. She spoke out about the extreme rise in gang rapes within her country thanks to unchecked immigration from Afghan and Syrian countries. Couldn't have that though, so they convicted her. And if you want to see that video, we'll link to it in the description below. Anyway, this leads me to the second reason why this ruling is so important here. It is a huge step in setting the stage to silence anyone who criticizes the government's immigration policy. You see, rather than acknowledge the harm that they have caused with their horrible immigration policies, these politicians inside the ruling class of Germany seem to believe that if they can just quell the people from having the discussion about their incompetence in the first place, then perhaps the masses will become docile again and accept their fate regardless of the harm that is heading their way. But of course, that's nonsense, but that's where we're going. So let's break down what has happened with this court case. And to help us do this, let's pull up the article from Politico. Their article is titled, Germany's Domestic Intelligence Agency Can Continue to Surveil Far-Right AfD High Court Rules. Intelligence authorities are justified in classifying the far-right Alternative for Germany party and its youth wing as suspected extremist organizations, a German high court has ruled Monday. The ruling rejected an appeal by the AfD that would have stopped intelligence agencies from surveilling the party. The move allows Germany's Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution, which is tasked with monitoring anti-constitutional groups inside the country, to wiretap functionaries in the AfD and use informants to monitor the party. And now essentially what this decision enables is the BfD and other agencies like it, they can now employ advanced methods against the country's second most popular party. This includes the ability to scrutinize emails, they'll be able to read them, web browsing histories, and monitor communications, like the emails and chats, instant messaging chats. Anyone even remotely affiliated with the party, by the way, could be swept up in this surveillance measures that the government now has put here. So this is a big deal. Now, the Politico goes on to write that judges from the Higher Administrative Court in Munster said the designation of the AfD as a suspected extremist organization is justified, based on statements politicians in the party have made about immigrants and Muslims in Germany. The court said that it was aware of a large number of statements directed against migrants, which systematically ostracized them, regardless of the extent of their integration into German society, and questioned their full membership of the German people despite their German citizenship. This according to a statement published Monday. The judges were convinced that there are sufficient factual indications that the AfD is pursuing efforts that are directed against the human dignity of certain groups of people and against the principle of democracy. Okay. Now again, look at what they did to Marie-Thérèse Kaiser here. Her pointing out valid concerns about people entering the country who are not intent on assimilating into the German culture, who do not share Western values, it's considered a thought crime. It's against the dignity of people. The German government is using the excuse of this so-called human dignity of certain groups as a shield to silence those who do not approve of the government's handling of immigration. They know full well that people are upset because of the crimes that are following them. They know full well that there is a large contingent of these migrants who are not assimilating into German culture. but they don't want the German citizens discussing this. Anyway, the Politico went on to write that politicians in Germany's three-party coalition government praised the ruling, because of course they did. And the ruling shows that our, quote, constitutional state has instruments that protect our democracy from threats from within. This according to Germany's Interior Minister Nancy Faeser. Now, interesting thing about her, she was part of the delegation of migration and integration. So she was part of this whole mass migration group. And she has also said that the domestic intelligence agencies now have a, quote, clear legal mandate to take action against extremism to protect our democracy, which is just code word for quelling anyone who has anything negative to say about the immigration issue in Germany. Anyway, Politico continues to write, Germany's constitution, forged in many ways to prevent a repeat of the Nazi rise to power, contains measures intended to prevent anti-democratic parties from using democratic means to gain power. Some politicians in Germany have even advocated the possibility of enacting a legal ban of the AfD. And there it is. This is the real reason for all of this. The BFV, this spy agency, happens to be led by the CDU, or the Christian Democrat Union Party. It's led by the member Thomas Haldenwang, whatever, who is rabidly outspoken in his desire to be rid of the AfD. The CDU is a rival party, by the way, of the AfD. They have long desired to exterminate their competition, especially after the CDU, which used to oppose mass immigration into the country, abandoned this core principle during the ill-fated Chancellor Angela Merkel days, where she brought in millions of migrants into the country, which led to the horrifying migrant crisis of 2015. This, by the way, the migrant crisis of 2015, this is the infamous New Year's Eve mass gang rapes and sexual assaults. All over Germany on that New Year's Eve, they surrounded, they robbed, sexually assaulted, and gang raped over 1,200 German women across the country. And ever since then, this CDU party lost support from a large constituency, and rightly so, within their party. Many conservative voters, realizing that they had been abandoned by their own party, said goodbye and sayonara to the CDU. And then they ended up joining the AfD, which seemed, at least at the time, to be the only real opposition to the growing madness within Germany's borders. And what do you suppose the CDU's response to this was? Do you think that they showed some humility, perhaps even reflected on their mistake? If you think that, you would be dead wrong. Nope. Instead, back in 2022, the federal government commissioner for East Germany, part of the CDU, Marco Wanderwitz, demanded that the rival party be banned, saying this, that's a far-right party, so what is there to wait for? And he called the AfD wicked. He justified his demand by saying that the AfD poses a great threat to society, and he claimed that the party endangered the free, democratic, basic order and is a right-wing extremist party. And ever since then, he's been trying to get the party banned. And now back to the Politico article. They go on to write that the AfD politicians, for their part, portray these measures as anti-democratic. No duh. And have depicted the surveillance as well as the suspected extremist designation as part of a government's conspiracy against the party. They are vowing to fight today's rulings. AfD lawmaker Roman Reusch said in a statement that we will, of course, appeal to the next instance. And the Politico goes on to write that the classification of the AfD as potentially extremist has not dissuaded many of its supporters. The party continues to poll in second place nationally ahead of the European election in early June. So, where does this all go from here? Well, from a legal standpoint, this most likely will end up in the country's top court, the Constitutional Court. The AfD has complained that in the current case, the case that was just decided, that Judge Gerald Buck rejected 470 attempts to introduce evidence into the court on their behalf, and they are protesting how remarkably short the case was. The judge, for his part, has claimed that the evidence that the AfD was attempting to introduce was irrelevant to the case, or would reveal the investigation methods utilized by the Office of the Protection of the Constitution. You see, the BFV has already confirmed that it has informants or spies working within the party now. And worth noting here, the BFV is already bringing the next case against the AfD. They are working overtime to change the party's listing to certain case of right-wing extremism. This, if they can do this, would open the doors to a potential ban of the party outright. So rather than defeat the AfD in the democratic process, they are attempting to eliminate this competition, this threat to their power. But meanwhile, while all of this is happening, radical immigrants continue to threaten the very country that has given them shelter, including a recent call to create a caliphate within Germany, which caused quite the uproar in Germany at the time. And there was even a follow-up protest recently on May 12th. Let's watch.
Mehr als 2000 radikale Islamisten versammeln sich erneut in Hamburg, ein Kalifat zu fordern. Einen Gottesstaat, in dem Freiheit, Recht und Gesetz nichts gelten.
This is Hamburg, Germany on May 12th. This is an Islamic public demonstration organized by the Islamic group Muslim Interactive. This May 12th rally was held under strict conditions, by the way, imposed by the German authorities, which included prohibitions on incitement to hatred or violence, and denial of Israel's right to exist, and any calls for a caliphate in Germany. Now, the event proceeded despite the restrictions, and so, as you can see here, they're holding up signs saying censored and banned, reflecting the theme of against censorship and the dictatorship of opinion. Now, the Muslim Interactive Group, the group behind these rallies, has been classified as extremist by German domestic intelligence services. This group is believed to be affiliated with a banned Islamic organization in Germany, which, by the way, advocates for a worldwide caliphate that rejects democracy as enshrined in Germany's basic law. The group has a significant online presence, particularly on TikTok, and it targets young Muslims in Germany. Now, this is happening right now. This is the reality for the German population at large. But the government there is hell-bent on quelling the concerns of their citizens. They do not want those who see their country in mortal danger to be able to talk about it. Let's be frank. The AfD as a party wouldn't even be a thing if there was but one of the other mainstream parties who upheld a stance against mass migration. Instead, the focus by the ruling class is all about shutting up the people of Germany who do not want this to happen to their country. A crisis in Germany is happening, and it is something that I believe is only now getting started. I think we're only seeing the beginning of where this is going to go, which naturally means we're going to have to keep an eye on the situation as it develops.